Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to a new series of videos that I'm going to be doing here on my YouTube channel. And that is going to consist of a series of conversations with some of my favorite people. And this young fellow here fits into that category for sure. This is a very famous and beloved artist, writer, historian, sculptor, and all-around awesome guy, Kevin Kidney. Kevin, welcome.
Hey Jim, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am good. This is great.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's always so much fun when we get together and have one of our great conversations. I always have such a great time. And it occurred to me, and I guess to you too, that when we sit down and talk, we cover so many wonderful topics just all over the map. Everything from great TV shows like Hawaii and I and The Wild Wild West to movies like The Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe. And that doesn't even cover all the many Disney topics that, of course, we both love.
Right.
And it's the same when we get together with your partner, Jody Daly. He's the same way. We just all love so many things and have so much in common. So it's always great to have these great conversations with you.
Yeah, I think we all watched a lot of television as kids.
That's what it boils down to.
That's really all it is.
But we thought that the topic of this video might be the very fact that Disney, as rich as it is, and Disney, of course, means so many things: theme parks, animation, TV, records, music, just live action films, just so many things that it can lead to, can really open doors to other subjects that are also just so fascinating. And it certainly makes me think of, for example, one of your great loves in the world of Disney is, of course, Disneyland. And there we find the classic attraction, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. I don't know, but it makes me think that probably that was one way you were introduced to the whole world of Tiki. And I know you're a world-class Tiki expert, so.
Well, it definitely was. As a kid, I was born in Anaheim and I grew up in Arizona, and places like a Pacific Island and a jungle and any place where tropical birds lived was very, very far away from my everyday reality. And so it really was the first time that I had any kind of a real taste of that, that little corner of Disneyland with its beautiful landscaping and artificial waterfalls and beautiful design and everything. But it was, for a kid like me, my imagination just ran, and it really felt like a real place. And I'm sure that is how it is for a lot of people, especially if you haven't traveled and you haven't been to a place like that. You're not a kid growing up in Hawaii, for example. That would seem really, really new and different and very intriguing. And so I think for me, you would think maybe growing up in Arizona that Frontierland would be my place, but no, I was just fascinated with these places that I had never been. The idea of the Matterhorn and Switzerland and all of these little things around Disneyland that kind of represent other places. I think were really, really fascinating. So like you said, the Tiki Room. Gosh, what an amazing, magical place that was. And seeing all those tiki gods and everything, years later, getting to meet Rolly Crump and Mark Davis and getting to hear about the things that inspired them to design that little world that inspired all of us was really fascinating. I actually went home and with my grandfather he was a woodworker, and I carved a little tiki that sat in our backyard for years and years and years, and probably rotted away in the sun and the rain. But I was just a little kid when I did that, and that was probably my first. But definitely, all routes lead right to Disneyland and the Tiki Room. That was my, that was my starting off place. But I wanted to show you, you always have such a beautiful collection of books and records and stuff piled around you and these videos. And I thought, I'm going to have some show and tell too. So I brought a few things to bore you with. This is one of my treasures. This book here is called Voices on the Wind. And this is an old book here, but it has a few illustrations inside, but not many. But it was the book that Rolly Crump used to kind of get acquainted with the lore and the mythology of the Pacific Islands. All the gods, Pele and Maui, and all of those characters, finding out the stories behind them that are then retold in the patio outside the Tiki Room. So one night we were having dinner with Rolly, and I brought out this book to show him, and he was amazed. He hadn't seen it in a long time, of course, years and decades. So he was paging through it, and he was very excited about the stories and just reminiscing about all the things that he had been very interested in at that time, and autographed the book for me, which was really cool. And then we ended up finding one for him on eBay, so now he has a copy also. Things like that I think are really fascinating, and it is a very, very good book. And it's even more interesting. It adds an extra little area of interest, knowing that it inspired something that we all know very, very well, at Disneyland. So you can kind of see where one thing inspired somebody, and then it sort of, boomeranged back to everybody else who got to enjoy it.
Yeah, it makes it a real treasure. And
yeah,
it's certainly, I guess you would say, an obscure book. So
I think so.
Yeah. It's the real deal. And how cool that he autographed it to you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we collect a lot of things like that. And I want to say, getting into, what should I show next? Getting into a lot of the movies and attractions at Disneyland that are based originally on books. There's so many of them, of course. All of the great Disney movies were based on books because most of them were in the public domain. You didn't have to pay for them. I mean, there's a few that are different like that, where they're original stories. But a lot of the great classics started out as classic literature. And I've been collecting books for my entire life. I've got a ton of them. But I pulled a few off that were things that I had not read first, but had seen as Disney films first, and loved the film so much. And I'm sure a lot of people do this. You see, say, for example, here's Wind in the Willows. Okay, this is my well-loved old copy of Wind in the Willows. And kind of going right along with that, here is the writings of Washington Irving. And we all know Washington Irving wrote the story of Ichabod Crane. Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Reading these books is such a treat. I'm sure you have read these as well. And they, because we have seen the movie first, there is that moment where you just picture Ichabod looking like the animated film character, because that is who he's going to look like, in our minds. But you see how different the stories are from the Disney version, and they begin to build themselves as their own story outside of what we already know from the Disney films. And I can't go get Washington Irving's autograph, but I do have in here a leaf. This is a leaf from a couple years ago. We went to New York, and we went to Sleepy Hollow, and there is the cemetery by the old church there where Washington Irving is buried. And there's a big tree that grows over his gravestone, and this was a leaf that had fallen from the tree on his gravestone. So I know it's a little weird, but I took it and I keep it in my book. And that's one of the things that makes it even more special. But a lot of our books, I'll tell you, someday, if you end up at our estate sale, be careful how you open the books, because there will be all kinds of junk that will fall out.
Junk or treasures?
I don't know. Old leaves. It depends on, I don't usually write the story as to where the leaf came from. So I think a lot of people will be very confused by, what is that?
Right. They'll just toss it away.
That's right. Oh, just throw those old leaves away. But a couple others, that have been really inspiring. Of course, I love 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And this is a beautiful version. In fact, it's a reprint, but it's got the cover that was recreated for the opening of the film, which is really neat.
Yeah.
And of course, Swiss Family Robinson. Swiss Family Robinson is one of those books that everybody knows, but very few people that I've met have actually read it or have read it in its original version. Of course, it was written in German 200 years ago, and then it has been translated into so many languages, and it has been rewritten and re-edited, and new chapters have been added and everything. So and of course, then there's the Disney version, which is very different, with the whole pirate thing and Roberta and whatever. So you get all kinds of stories. It's almost like it's like playing the telephone game, where somebody starts the conversation, and by the time you get to the end, it has morphed, into kind of a slightly different message. And I do think a lot of these stories have kind of had that effect. And especially with the Disney films, because they are retold. And many times Walt had another idea that he thought might work better for film, or for his audience that he was, at the time or whatever. And so things were taken out or changed, or characters moved around or eliminated or added. And so if you're watching just the Disney version, you might be a little surprised when you read the book and you're like, well, where's Roberta? What happened to her? But I want to say something about collecting leaves. So a couple of years ago, and you know this, that Jody and I are working on a book right now with Disney on the making of Swiss Family Robinson. And so one of the things that we started this whole adventure with was traveling to the island of Tobago in the West Indies, where the movie was filmed. So all those beautiful, beaches, and that incredible tree with the tree house, and all those places, that incredible waterfall pool where the family is swimming and sliding and swinging on vines and everything. Those are all real places you can really go to. And they're all kind of out in these far-flung corners of the island, and some of them are a little difficult to find. But there's not a gift shop out there, so my souvenirs are always really, really different. So I wanted to show you this. This is very special.
Whoa!
This is a shadow box, and I'm trying not to get you reflected in the glass, but
yeah, who needs that?
You can see that it's rocks and some leaves and stuff like that. These are things that we picked up in Tobago. So I actually have some real leaves from the real tree, the Swiss family's tree. And these little things that look like round cookies are actually little wooden discs that I glued beach sand to, because how do you display sand, really,
Oh, leave it to you to figure out a way to do
That's
it.
what I came up with. Dip them in the glue, dip them in the sand, and then there they are. So there's the beaches that the family first set foot onto land. That's here, and then there's a little white sandy disc up here. That's when the boys are going around the island to kind of make sure it really is an island. They find this beautiful white beach, and that's some sand from there. So anyway, these are the things that really excite me. They have now become part of our own personal adventure and our own fun, and it's just been launched from seeing Swiss Family Robinson with my family in the 70s at a drive-in movie theater, and that's where it all goes. All these things that we have in our lives, they inspire us. And if it's something that we love, you just never really you know, you never really lose it. A lot of the things that I love today, I loved when I was a kid. You know, I haven't really changed that much. I've just learned more about these topics, but they all kind of started back then. You know?
Yeah, for sure. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it really, really is. One of the, you know, we've been very lucky. Not everybody gets to travel, and I know for a lot of people, and including a lot of people in my own family, because even as a kid, you know, we traveled to the mountains and went camping, or we go to another state over and visit relatives or whatever. But we weren't, you know, we weren't a traveling family. We weren't on the ocean cruises, and we weren't hopping airplanes to Europe and all of that.
Right.
So for us, our view of the world and our experience was in watching movies, you know, maybe going to Disneyland to see kind of an idea of what a faraway place might be like, you know. So we had, and reading books, of course, and magazines and all of that type of thing. But it is a whole other great experience to be able to go to these places in person. That is for sure. Because now you're not just watching it through the lens of Walt Disney. You're watching it through your own lenses, and you're getting to smell the air and eat food and meet people, and that is priceless. You know, it's incredible.
Priceless for sure. Yeah, and we're living vicariously through you, since you have gone to some of these places now.
Oh, I'll tell you, this year with the pandemic, you know, no one went anywhere, and so we looked at a lot of our photographs of past trips, and you know, and reminisced about how fun it was to get to go. Remember, we got to go to Tokyo that time, you know.
Yeah.
But it is exciting, the idea that maybe we'll get out and travel again.
Absolutely, that definitely will happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely want to urge people to travel if you have the means, and you have the bravery in you to do it. You know, do go with an open mind, and go you know, ready to learn and ready to try things. You know, that's my advice.
Good advice it is. Always a great experience.
One other thing I was thinking of too is we did go to Switzerland, and I love Switzerland. I have Swiss heritage in me, and I've always loved the Matterhorn, of course, at Disneyland and everything. And it was exciting to get to go to Switzerland and see the real Matterhorn. Did not climb the real Matterhorn. You can, and people have. It's a different type of person than me. But I can sit at the bottom of the Matterhorn and eat a pretzel and have a beer and look up at it and think it's amazing. You know? But, you know, the fun of seeing a Disney movie and then going and seeing where it was filmed, like we did with Swiss Family Robinson, you can also do that with another Disney film from the same period called Third Man on the Mountain. And a lot of people that I have met have not seen this movie, and they haven't even heard of the movie. But when I tell them that it is the movie that inspired why there is a Matterhorn at Disneyland, they're kind of intrigued by that. And I know that it's now available on Disney Plus, so you have no excuse. Now you can see the movie. But it is based on another favorite book called Banner in the Sky. And it is about a little boy who climbs the Matterhorn, a teenager actually, who climbs the Matterhorn because his father was a mountain climber and who died trying to get to the top. And but his father, before he died, had found a secret passageway and to get to the very top of the Matterhorn. And so he finds that passageway and makes it to the top. And anyway, it's a wonderful story, and all filmed really in Zermatt in Switzerland. And so going there was quite fun.
Well, I know your book is going to reflect your trip and your findings. And so when your book comes out, we'll all be able to experience that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully by next year.
Great. And hopefully you'll come back when the book is published, and we'll talk more about it at that time. Because
Yes, oh, for sure.
we want everybody to know about it and everybody to rush out and get a copy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some other books that you might, and you probably have these too, Jim. I'm sure you do. But there's some great books out there that people should look for that Jody and I both have really enjoyed, and we turn to often when we're doing our research and for whatever different projects and things, or just out of interest. But here's one that's very good from several years ago called Walt Disney and Europe. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon or someplace. But this is fascinating because it talks about all the European influences on the Disney films, and not only on the stories, but also the styles, the artistic styles, the music and the characters, and and the different artists that have inspired a lot of things. So, everything from Source's Apprentice and just flipping through here and looking at things. But Swiss Family Robinson is talked about in here, Alice in Wonderland, all the different European stories and the things that have inspired Disney. It's very, very good book, and it has tons of great pictures too. But it will, I found that reading these kinds of books I always have my phone handy to either IMDb stuff or to Google stuff or to, there's a museum you can go to see this. Well, let's see, where's that museum? And is it open today? And can we go see this someday? I love that kind of stuff. Another book too, and this is more recent, is Once Upon a Time, Walt Disney, The Sources of Inspiration for the Disney Studios. This is definitely a beautiful coffee table book, and it's kind of the same as the book I just showed you, but it's got incredible color imagery and everything, where you can see where Gustav Tangren and Kai Nielsen and Ivan Durrell, Mary Blair, where all these people were looking to come up with the ideas for the things that we know in the Disney films. And you'll be surprised how, we all think that, oh gosh, these people were so brilliant and they came up with so much. Well, they were brilliant, and they were able to tell the story, and they were able to come up with a very beautiful artistic style that appealed to the masses. But they were inspired by equally brilliant people who lived before all of us, who came up with many, many ideas of stories and talking animals and princesses and castles and all of that. And there's so much. It's really, really a rich history. And I think the cool thing, we can pretty much be, sure of this, that all of those artists and concept artists and designers and animators that worked for the Disney studio back in the golden era, they were probably incredibly cool, intelligent people, because looking at all of the stuff that they were interested in, and their side interests, playing music, a lot of them, they were drawing and playing instruments and doing so many things and traveling, and they were just big sponges, absorbing all of this incredible wealth of experience and then putting it down on paper and on film and retelling it to all of us, which is really, really neat, really, really fascinating. Other things other people might be interested in is there's some great autobiographies by some of the real famous Disney artists. Of course, Bill Peet wrote a really fun one that talks about his childhood and his inspiration and stuff. And I really love that one. Look for Bill Peet's book. But here's one that people might not know. Everybody knows Ivan Durrell. But Ivan Durrell wrote an autobiography called Horizon Bound on a Bicycle. And it is fascinating. It talks all about his childhood and his teenage years and all the stuff that interested him. And of course, his style. Everybody loves his style. And it's so iconic to Disney. But there's so much to it. And he was such a three-dimensional person with a lot of interesting views of the world around him. So highly recommend all of these books.
It really is fascinating to find out what fed artists and what they were immersed in.
Yeah.
and kind of like you said, where it all comes from. Fascinating.
Several years ago, before uh, uh, the great Ray Bradbury passed away, Jody and I went several times and got to see him speak in person. He was at different places, here in LA. He lived in LA, and so we had the great opportunity to see him at different things. And there was one time we went to a library, and he had a group of about 40 people, and he was just talking about his interests. And it was really fascinating. This was around the beginning of the internet, and he was such a fan of this internet being something that we could all use as a tool to learn about so much. It was our window on the world, and we had control of it, and we could, almost get to go places and look for stuff and do research. And also the fact that so many movies, which, years ago, you'd have to wait until they either came to a movie theater or were run on television, and then they were gone, and there was no way to revisit them. And he was so in love with the fact that suddenly we had videotapes and DVDs and laser discs and all of this stuff where we had movies, and there were great opportunities to get to see more films and read more books. And I think you said something like, this generation never before has any other generation had access to so many things and so much knowledge and so much. And here it is, take advantage of that. He was very much urging everybody, don't squander this opportunity. See movies and read books and learn about all this stuff, because I would have died to be able to have this, as a kid. He was so
right.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
had to go to the library and find about the world in his own way, with what tools were given to him. But we have quite a lot, actually, and hopefully I will remember to use that.
Yeah, and it's very easy to take all that for granted now.
Yeah.
But that's amazing to hear that from him, because he was, of course, well known for his science fiction, and he was a futurist. So when he was really writing some of his great classics in the 50s and 60s, if he could have seen what would be available now, it's like it is science fiction.
It is. You know what? I'm a great collector on my social media of my own personal, Instagram favorites. Whenever we travel, and say we go to, Switzerland or Japan or someplace, and we eat at a restaurant, or we go to a museum, we go to the Studio Ghibli Museum outside of Tokyo, or something like that. You're so inspired, but what's so great is all of these places they're all on Instagram and Facebook and everything. So you can kind of collect them, like, oh my gosh, I had this incredible food that I would never be able to remember or recreate at home, but I can follow this restaurant or coffee shop or whatever, that we had this incredible thing, and just at home I can almost visit.
Yeah.
There was a time several years ago we were in Hong Kong and had tea, a formal tea service at this restaurant outside of Hong Kong Park, and there was, where they warm the pot and they pour the hot water, and there's a box, and there's the teas, and there's all of this stuff that goes on, and before you can even drink it, and it was fascinating, and there was music and there was art and everything. Well, finding that little tea house on Instagram, and they post, and you can see everybody in there drinking tea and the musicians playing and everything, and it's a great souvenir. It's kind of like my box of leaves and sand. I can look at it and remember and kind of travel back. But this is a really cool resource for getting to re-experience all those things and to hold on to them and to remember next time I go, I want to go back.
Yeah, for sure.
If I ever get to go, I will go back.
And those of us who not only have not been, but probably may not be going at all, we can also have a taste of it by seeing all
You
that.
you can search all those things out. I always have to remind people, as much as we love Disney, Disney is not the end all to, I mean, people will be like, yes, it is. Well, it's actually really not, and Disney is also it's a little Whitman sampler of things and of styles, and it's all been sort of packaged mostly for an American audience, for our tastes and our experience. It's something that it looks exotic, but also slightly familiar. And so it's comfortable, and we don't feel like we're being too out there, to get to try this new thing. But once you've experienced that, the only way to go up from there is to try to experience the real thing, the thing that inspired that experience, whatever it is. I haven't done a naphtha launch through a jungle yet, in real life, but maybe someday I will. I've always wanted to take a boat ride through a blue bayou. And I always loved that at Disneyland with the fireflies and the moonlight and those alligators, in the water there. But I'd love to experience that as something like that in real life. And of course, there are many people who have got to do that. And so it's a big, big world. And we just take and we're grateful for whatever we are able to do. But when those opportunities come, you've got to do it. I put the Mark Twain behind me here. I kind of set up our stage for this phone call because I knew we were going to talk about some fun things, and so I put a few little things in the background. But Mark Twain. Gosh, we love Mark Twain, and here's the portable Mark Twain with all of his famous novels and a lot of his short stories and things. There's just so much,
especially with that cover.
Oh yeah,
the cover on that book. I haven't read Mark Twain in a long time, but always loved it. And of course, he, as a very young man, he was traveling, so obviously that fed him for his return to America, and his exploration of his world was already well informed by everything he experienced.
Yeah, and those books of his travels in Europe are wonderful. In fact, before we went to Germany and Switzerland and France and all that, I read Mark Twain's account of going there. Of course, in the 1800s, but it was pretty fascinating because a lot of the old castles and old places are of course still there, so you can see the places Mark Twain went. But it's fun to, just like Disney presenting his view and his take on, say, Switzerland or the tropical islands, to visit somebody else's view, like Mark Twain, is also just as fascinating. It's really neat because he's this homespun American with a great wry sense of humor, and he's experiencing some of these strange customs that are different to him with his from his viewpoint and his interest, and also his sense of humor. So it's really fun. These are great things to discover, and I'm amazed that as I get older, how many things I haven't read.
Yeah.
Or movies I haven't seen, and I'll think, oh my gosh, how could I not have read this? How could I not have seen this? I had to wait till I was in my 50s to actually pick this up and read this, and I think that's with a lot of us. We're very busy and it takes time, but like anything, all of these gifts that are given to us, they're wonderful to have around us, but they're just sitting there unless we take advantage of them and take a peek and, give them a shot. Try reading some of this stuff and seeing if you like it. And things that I read even as a kid in high school that I didn't like, I've picked them up years later and discovered that I just wasn't at a point in my life where I could, they weren't relevant to me. I couldn't find a character or something to latch onto to identify with. And sometimes it takes a little time, and sometimes it never happens.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Right.
so there's like, I don't know why everybody loves that book, because I just can't get into it. You know,
but that's okay. There's so many other things
that's okay.
to be
Yeah,
discovered.
another thing. Yeah. There's always another thing just sitting there waiting. So
exactly. So wow, this is an incredible journey just in what you've shown us here in this visit. So I love seeing it through your eyes and hearing how it connects with the Disney thing as well.
Thanks.
Yeah,
well, hopefully it inspires some people. And these are just some of the things that we have sitting around. And we have, of course, tons. We have so many books. We're both really big readers. And then, of course, we have lots of books that are full of pictures that we use as reference for all of the art and different things we've worked on. So we have like several rooms in our house that are just, they're full of books.
Right, right. And I've always considered books themselves like works of art. You know, the physical, even
and the smell. You ever smell it?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's just a whole experience. Very very tactile. So I do love electronic books for sure, because they're very very easy to carry around. Of course, you know, you can have like 10,000 books on your phone or something. And there's other great little features like being able to look up a word or make a note, but nothing will ever take the place of these beautiful books. And even some of the simpler ones, like the Mark Twain book you showed, that's actually a fairly simple book as books go, but look at that. Even that had that beautiful cover.
Yeah.
And of course the contents, they can't be beat.
Well, they're all out there, you know. A lot of times a lot of the books that I like I don't collect expensive books, and everything is mostly bought at a thrift store or at a secondhand. I like old used bookstores and stuff. And so, you know, and you can always go on Amazon and find something at a pretty affordable price, a beat up old copy of something just to read it, you know.
Right, for sure.
Or the library, you know, even our library here in Anaheim, not a famous library, but it's our main library, and it has so much stuff. And if they don't have it, they have a search service where they will search the network of other libraries and usually get that book or movie or whatever it is you're looking for. They'll get it for you within a few days, and then you can go pick it up. So yeah, the library, everybody use the library. That's another thing. For
sure. A great resource, and easier than ever to use now with the internet, because you can search the card catalog, right? I mean, I do that all the time.
Be amazed what libraries have. And even while we've been working on our Swiss Family Robinson book, you know, searching around and finding, you know, Aaron Wilcott, who you know is a film historian. He's working on the book with us. He's been doing the section on the soundtrack and the score and everything, and discovering that the composers, all of his papers and you know, and books and music and everything all got left to a library. And so there's a collection where you can actually access all of this stuff, and it's really fascinating. So there's a ton of stuff out there.
Well, speaking of great books, I know your book on the Swiss Family Robinson movie and locations and things like the music is going to be great. I've heard you talk about it. I've seen your presentation on your trip, and I know it's going to be great with you and Jody and Aaron all working on it together. It's thrilling. So like I said, you'll have to come back, and also come back and talk about some of these other fascinating things.
Okay, just say the word.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't thank you enough for being here for our debut episode of this interview series. And for those of you who aren't already following you rapidly on social media, you know you have a website and...
Yeah, our website is just links to other things. So so yeah, really the best place where we're mostly at is Instagram and Facebook. We're on Twitter, but Twitter is just fed by our Instagram and Facebook. But you can look for Kevin and Jody that's what we go under, Kevin and Jody. So search for us there, and we'll hopefully we can entertain you with all kinds of weird stuff that we're interested in.
Yes, and I can vouch for that because whenever I see you have a post on any of those platforms, I'm right there. It's
Oh, great!
Yeah, it's very inspirational.
Coming from you, that means a lot. Thank you.
Well, that in itself is very flattering. So thank you, Kevin. But we'll look forward to getting together again, hopefully in person very soon after all this is over that we're dealing with now. But also here again in a virtual visit so that our audience can share in the fun. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.